So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, it looks like Canelo Alvarez is pushing for that Beterbiev fight. He's pushing for that fight with Arthur Beterbiev. Eddie Hearn has come out today and said that, Canelo is looking to fight Beterbiev after Plant. So obviously they're looking to make the Plant fight, and then they're looking for Beterbiev. Is that because they look at Beterbiev and they think he's 36 and he's not the fighter? I actually think he's in his prime. I think Beterbiev's not had many fights and he's knocking everybody out. There's not a lot of flaws there. And I've said all along, I think this will take Canelo's legacy to another level. Beterbiev is a monster, and he's seen as a guy that, beats Canelo. Many people feel Beterbiev beats Canelo. So if that's the case, let's get it on. Let's get the fight on. Because if people think that Beterbiev beats Canelo, then it's surely a fight that should excite fans. It's surely a fight that we should talk about and should get made, right? Canelo Alvarez is trying to dare to be great, and I know there's going to be excuses about Beterbiev's age if he fights him, especially if he beats him. There's going to be excuses about the fact that Beterbiev's 36 and Canelo's looking for an easy. It's not, because Beterbiev, there's a lot of fans that think he beats Canelo. And he's strong and he's big. And I've spoke to many people. Like, I know, guys that I have on my channel, like Ray and that, think that Beterbiev beats Canelo. So there's a lot of people out there that think that Beterbiev would beat him. So to be honest with you, I think that would be, and let's be honest, it's a far more tougher fight than Charlo or Andrade or any of those guys. Beterbiev is a monster. Like, he's walking through everyone at light heavyweight. And remember, that's light heavyweight, 175. Big, strong dudes. Big, strong guys that probably walk around over 200 pound plus. Canelo doesn't walk around, I'm pretty certain, 200 pound plus. Beterbiev is huge. Just look at his frame, his size. He's massive. And he's strong, and he's a good boxer. Let's not forget, Beterbiev was a really good amateur. So we're not talking about just a big, wild puncher. We're talking about a very skilled boxer here as well. This is a very tough fight. And for Canelo, for me to take a risk like this, you got to take your hat off and say, wow, the guy's a proper killer for trying to take that kind of fight. But like I said, there's always going to be excuses with Canelo for some reason. No matter what he does, there's always some kind of, he's ducking him or he's ducking that guy, when really he's not ducking anyone. He'll fight anyone. Canelo will fight anyone. He's cut from that kind of cloth. He'd just fight anyone. I think he's just a proper fighting man, and he'll fight anyone and anyone. And I don't think he has. I think when Eddie Hearn says Canelo Alvarez wants to fight Beterbiev, and it's probably not the smart thing to do, according to Hearn, but that's what Canelo wants. And when people say that Canelo can't do it, as Eddie Hearn said, Canelo wants that. He wants people to say he can't do it so he can go and improve it. And that's the sign of a competitor, and Canelo is like that. The fact that people would say that Canelo is ducking, and dodging Andrade and Charlo is beyond me. Because if he was to fight Beterbiev, I don't know how you can push that narrative anymore. They will push it, but I just don't know how you can push that if he fights Beterbiev, because Beterbiev is an absolute beast. Nobody would give Andrade and Charlo a chance against Beterbiev. Nobody. Like, those guys don't even beat Bivol. Forget Beterbiev. Charlo's talking about not even wanting to go up to 168, right? He's talking about fighting Canelo at a catchweight possibly, right? So imagine what Beterbiev would do to him. Like, Beterbiev would absolutely destroy. And I like Charlo. Would destroy those guys. So Canelo moving up to light heavyweight to fight somebody in their prime, that's a unified champion. man, that takes some cojones, man. Especially a guy that doesn't need to do that. Remember, Canelo doesn't need to take a risk at this point in his career. Canelo could keep doing what he's doing, you know, fight 160-pounders, fight Errol Spence. If he goes up to light heavyweight and fights Arthur Beterbiev and beats him, I don't know where that puts his legacy. I think that puts his legacy to another level. Because that now you're daring to be great. Now you're doing something that's incredible. And Beterbiev is a very, very dangerous and very, very good fighter. But the crazy thing is, I think Canelo can win the fight. And that's why I think it should happen. Because if I think Canelo can win the fight, then it's a fight that should happen. And I explained this in my live stream, that although it's a dangerous fight, and a lot of people say that, you know, he could lose that fight. Yeah, he could. But for me, it's a fight he can win. And if it's a fight you can win, then it's a fight you should take. That's the way I look at it. If it's a fight that somebody can win, then it's a fight that interests the fans and a fight that should happen. You know, no one can say that that fight shouldn't happen. Because like I said, it's a fight that people think, there are people out there that think Canelo beats Beterbiev. So there's no reason for Canelo not to take the fight. Apart from the fact that, you know, there are still some challenges out there at 160, 168. You know, he's obviously got to fight Plant, but once he fights Plant, he becomes undisputed. Then for me, he's created history. That's what he wants to do. The reason why he wants to fight Plant, because he wants to create history. And that's what Canelo's about. Canelo's about creating history. He wants to become undisputed, and then he can do what he wants. Because then he's going to say, you know what? Okay, now I've become undisputed. I've created history. That's gone onto my CV. I'm an undisputed champion. What do I do now? Okay, I want to go to light heavyweight and fight Beterbiev, because that would put my legacy to another level. So that's what Canelo's going to do. Canelo's going to look to fight fights that are going to do great things for his legacy. And a fight with Beterbiev, I don't think anyone can say he's ducking here or whatever if he fights Beterbiev, because Beterbiev would destroy Charlo and Andre, right? So he's fighting a much more dangerous fight against a guy that's very strong and a very big puncher. And a very good boxer who was a very good amateur. So for me, I just don't see how anyone can push that. You know, he's ducking him, he's ducking him. Because Canelo, for me, his resume is one of the best in boxing. And I think if he beats Beterbiev, I think that would solidify his greatness. I think whatever, you know, that would be a bonus. For me, he doesn't have to fight Beterbiev. He doesn't have to go in there with Beterbiev and fight Beterbiev. He doesn't have to, because that would be, again, biting off more than you can chew. But that would be daring to be great for Canelo. If Canelo goes up and fights Beterbiev, he'd be daring to be great. He'd be doing something that would put your legacy on another level. He'll be doing something that, you know, he's putting himself in a dangerous situation where people think he could get knocked out because of the size difference and how strong and dangerous Beterbiev is. And that's what Canelo would be doing. But Canelo isn't afraid to do that. Canelo will do it, because Canelo probably looks at Beterbiev and thinks, this guy's one-dimensional. I can beat him. My defense is great. I've got great counter-punching ability. I can beat this guy. Even though it's a dangerous fight and the guy is big and strong, I can outbox him. I'm the better boxer. I'm the more complete fighter. That's the way Canelo probably looks at it. This man is taking his legacy to another level. He's taking it to another level. And the fact that he's got Eddie Hearn behind him, Eddie Hearn will make those fights happen, because Eddie Hearn wants to do big events. He wants to create great atmospheres. He wants to create legacy-defining fights for himself. So he can say, oh, I promoted Canelo Beterbiev. I promoted Canelo Billy Joe. He wants to be involved in the biggest and best fights in boxing. So Eddie Hearn is going to push those fights as well. Eddie Hearn's all about giving his, you know, fighters and the fans the best fights possible. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that fight with Beterbiev, there's a great chance. And the fact that Eddie Hearn's pushing that, I think there's a great chance that fight happens. I do. And I honestly think that that Eddie Hearn's probably going to look at that fight and think, you know what? That would do, if they could get that fight on DAZN, that could do huge numbers. And although Beterbiev's not a household name, he's known amongst the hardcore boxing fans. And a win. You know, Beterbiev's got a crazy amateur record, unbelievable amateur record. This guy was a great fighter, amateur. And then as a pro, he's not put a foot wrong. He's knocked everybody out. You know, so he's a devastating puncher and a devastating fighter. And right now you say he's up there. And I don't know how Beterbiev doesn't make anyone's pound for pound list. Especially if he beats, like, fights a Bivol and destroys Bivol. You know, I just don't see how you can't. You have to put him on your pound for pound list. He somehow doesn't seem to find out his way on anyone's pound for pound list yet. He's knocked everybody out. You know, his fights haven't been close. He's been beating everybody up. So I want to see Canelo fight him. I think that would be the toughest fight for both of their careers. I think for Beterbiev, that would be a legacy-defining fight. And for Canelo, that would be a huge fight. That would take Canelo's legacy to another level. And I'm going to say that's a legacy-defining fight for Canelo because I think Canelo's already had a lot of them. And he's won a lot of them. And it'd just be another string to his bow. If he was to pull it off, it'd be another big win in a stellar career. And it would be a win. It would be the best win of his career, in my opinion, because beating a unified light heavyweight champion that's in his prime, that's knocking everybody out, and Canelo being undersized, that's a serious win. That's a serious win. But with Eddie Hearn alongside Canelo Alvarez, I do think these fights are going to happen because Eddie Hearn wants to be involved in these big, major fights. And Eddie Hearn will also push it, and Canelo's also pushing it. And that's why I think you've got two guys with the same kind of drive, two guys to be involved in the biggest fights in boxing. Well, Eddie Hearn as a promoter and Canelo as a fighter. And that's why I think they're just a great match. I think they're a great match, and Eddie Hearn will deliver for Canelo. And Eddie Hearn, look at the way he treats AJ. Look at the way he treats Canelo. When he's got a cash cow fighter, like a Canelo, like a Anthony Joshua, he does all he can for them and all he can to make those big fights. Firstly, he knows what those fighters do for his business. Secondly, I think Hearn has a drive to be involved in the biggest fights in boxing or promoting the biggest fights in boxing. He wants to be involved. Eddie Hearn. So I think Canelo's found himself a great promoter, and Eddie Hearn obviously has found himself one of the best fighters in the world. I think Canelo Alvarez is a for me an even bigger star than Joshua, and the reason why I think that is because I think with Anthony Joshua there's a lot more vulnerability. He could lose. I think with Canelo there's a lot more invincibility where people just don't see how he's going to lose at the minute. So you've kind of banked yourself a pound for pound great who's an unbelievable fighter right now. One of the best in the business right now. And it's going to be difficult for someone to beat him right now. So, and he's a cash cow. So you've basically got a complete fighter and a money-making machine like Canelo, who's unlikely to lose. So, yeah, I think by pushing him into a fight with Beterbiev, or by him trying to dare to be great, that you're putting yourself at risk of losing. But you know, if he was to beat Beterbiev, then really, unless he goes up to cruiserweight, you basically said he's cleaned out from 175 to 168 to 170. Because I honestly think Beterbiev's his toughest. I don't think Bivol beats Canelo. I think Beterbiev will be his toughest test. If he beats Beterbiev, no one at light heavyweight is beating him. No one at light heavyweight. I don't think anybody at light heavyweight, super middleweight or middleweight beats Canelo. I don't. And I think he'll prove it, by the way. I think he'll prove it. I think he's that good. I think he'll prove it. So a fight with... there's a reason why Canelo's looking for a Beterbiev fight. He knows he can beat that guy. A reason why Canelo's calling out Beterbiev's name, or his trainer's calling out, they know they can beat him. A lot of people think that he would avoid Beterbiev and he won't fight. He'd fight Beterbiev. He looks at Beterbiev and thinks he can beat him. You know, Beterbiev has a style that I think Canelo would enjoy. Obviously, I think Beterbiev also has a style that could put Canelo on the back foot and potentially be a nightmare for Canelo. But Canelo, for me, right now, would have too much for Beterbiev. That's just my personal opinion. But it's a fight that's a 50-50, and I can easily see it going the other way as well. I would favour Canelo, but it's by no means a fight that I think... I went Billy Joe. I didn't give Billy Joe a big chance at all. I give Beterbiev a very good chance of winning that fight. But I would still favour Canelo. But that's my opinion. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.